So, welcome to Sports Extra, the real sports platform where we talk about issues happening locally, regionally, and internationally. My name is Rubimbo Chakoreka, and the biggest matter on the show in today's show is going to be the ZIFA presidential candidacy list. Those that have been included, those that have been excluded. But on the inclusive list, we've got Marshall Gore, Philemon Machana, Ngobile Magwizi, Martin Kweza, Twine Piri, and Makwinji Somapiri, also known as Quinji 15 back in his heydays when he played for Dynamos. So just generally looking at the candidates that have been included within the ZIFA presidency list, you're looking at the likes of Martin Kweza. Martin Kweza did a fantastic job in terms of getting the profile of the Northern Region Soccer League to rise to its level. Many sponsors actually coming through and making the league quite formidable. Not only being formidable, but being a place where Premier Soccer League players would actually come down to Northern Region Soccer League teams and play for them because they were now more lucrative, they were paying a bit more, and they were more sustainable. So Martin Kweza there might actually have a case of becoming president. Twine Piri did very well with Caps United. In actual fact, in its hey years, when the likes of Charles Mklauri were a part of the whole setup, that's when they won a couple of league titles there, and they were a very solid side. However, it seemed like Caps United then started waning post Charles Mklauri, and as the coaches began to change hands over and over again. So maybe that may be the only blight that would be on his CV. Looking at the likes of Ngobile Magwizi, well, we're looking at somebody who has become a really significant corporate brand, and somebody who is actually pulling in terms of the monies at Sakunda Holdings. But also in terms of local football development, he has also been putting in the money and also making sure that grassroots development becomes something essential. So he seems to have the corporate clout, he seems to have the passion for football. That's going to be very important going forward. For Makwinji Somapiri, well, I'm yet to hear a large list of what he has been able to do in terms of football. He comes in as a former player for Dynamos Football Club. He comes in as somebody who has fulfilled the paperwork in order to get into a management position, but doesn't strike me as a person who will be able to then hit the high notes when it comes to what the corporates may demand as to football development in the country and to the direction of football in its entirety. But I would love to hear yours. Who do you think will be able to come in and take the final gong of being the ZIFA president for the next 4 years? To help us discuss a little bit further about the ZIFA presidential candidacy, we've got a sports extra analyst, Mr. Titch.
We expected drama during these ZIFA elections, and obviously with the first round of nominations being confirmed yesterday, that drama has already started spilling over. I think out of the 10 presidential candidates, I think that's where a lot of the focus is. You know, the so-called Big Four missing out. There's your Walter Magaya, Farai Jere, Temba Mliswa, and former Warriors captain Benjani Marwaru. I think from the chatter that has been coming out and the word that's been put out by Magaya's camp, they will likely challenge that on the basis that they claim the convictions that made him feel that ethics and integrity test were against company he runs and not against his individual person. With Jerry, obviously, there was issues around his change of name that he did, I think, early 2000s, and how that maybe put into question his documents. But I think that's a much simpler case if that is the only reason he failed. For Temba, I think we've always known he's had his stories. He's a controversial guy, but I think his credentials as a sport administrator, I think they hold up. So it would be interesting to see how his candidature will hold up and how his appeal will go. He's already explicitly released a statement saying that he will challenge that. For Benjani Marwaru, haven't been able to source too much information. I suspect it will have to do with either maybe not necessarily residing in the country over the last couple of years, or maybe something to do with his educational qualifications, because I think we haven't heard too many stories that question his integrity. But I think when the Normalization Committee will release their reasons, I think by 15th of January, they should be doing the confirmations. And I think or even when these guys decide to appeal, it should be interesting. But of the candidates, I think there's already talk about Philemon Machana. You know, you remember him. He was on the board along with Fulton Kamamba. It seems like, you know, he's a cat with 9 lives. He's a football person. He's been there, done that. Whether the councillors will vote for him, well, they have in the past. So we'll see if they still have love for him. Nobile Magwizi, I think he has been a dark horse, but he seems to have the right PR machine with him. So it'll be interesting to see how that actually pans out. So for me, I think that's going to be an interesting race. I'm sure we'll see more developments. Also interesting to see Makwinji Somapiri. He's there. I think he's a former player, a respected player, played for the big two, Dynamos and Highlanders. And even amongst the VP candidates, former PSL CEO Kenin Debele, we're seeing a fellow journal, Francis Nyamchamba. We always criticize KB Handel and at the top. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that pans out. But yeah, it's going to be an intriguing race.
Well, thank you very much, Titch, there. And of course, highlighting very importantly those that have been left out of the ZIFA presidential race. But joining me on set today is Sydney Savanu, not a stranger to Sports Extra. Now, Sydney, of course, the ZIFA presidential candidates have been chosen. They've been picked. Looking at it from your own assessment, who do you think might just be able to pip or come out?
Well, to me, leadership is not about occupying positions. Anyone can occupy a position, but not everyone is able to be effective. So to be honest, yes, there has to be a ZIFA president, but from the names that I saw, I to be honest, I wouldn't recommend anyone because I don't know most of those people. Maybe it's my challenge, but look, I just hope that, you know, whoever is going to vote, they'll vote. They will cast a vote based on merit.
On merit. And
yeah.
Well, look, you talk about you know, the lack of out there-ness, if there is a word or a term like that, of some of these candidates. Obviously, you got to try and Piri. We've spoken about him a little bit earlier on. We've got the likes of Makwinji Somapiri. He's the first, I must commend, the first former footballer to actually be really putting his name. I know that there are the likes of James Takarasha. I hope I've got his surname right. He also came through. He wanted to come in, but there were anomalies within his candidacy. But after going through an ethics committee, one would feel that now we've actually got a former player who's decided to step up to the plate.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it would be nice to have someone like Makwinji Somapiri. I believe he was an ex-Dynamos player. Just to follow what's happening in our continental setup as far as football administration is concerned. You have Eto'o now is now the leader of the FA Cameroon, and you have Didier Drogba now leading the Ivory Coast FA. It would be nice. I'm sure that you know, for something, for a change, it would be nice to see Makwinji Somapiri. By the end of the day, we do not vote. The vote belongs to those people who are able to vote. But like what I'm just hoping for is that people are going to be voting based on merit, not based on favor or based on emotion. I think that's the biggest challenge that we have as a sports fraternity in our country.
Oh yeah, well, that is us. These are our thoughts. That's his thoughts. That's Mr. Teacher's thoughts. Now the question is, what are yours? And you can obviously put in your comments, your thoughts as well. Don't forget to like, to share, to comment, to subscribe on all of our content here on Sports Extra. Well, we're going to be discussing cricket very soon and talking about some of the challenges that are there. So we do have our Zimbabwe cricket. They are going to be going into a 2-test match series. The first one beginning on Boxing Day. And Sydney, it hasn't been the best of outings for Zimbabwe cricket. Unfortunately, two series in the white ball format, both of them going to Afghanistan, falling quite dismally in some of the other matches. But in your particular opinion, do you see any positives that we could have picked out from some of the performances?
Well, to be honest, it was an appalling performance from our Zimbabwean national cricket team. one thing you should understand, Ruimbo, is Afghanistan. This is the other game that we played. They beat us with over 200 something runs, and that is their biggest win. And considering that Zimbabwe was already in the setup of playing ODIs, T20s before Afghanistan, we used to beat Afghanistan without struggling. But nowadays, those guys, I don't know how and when it happened that
do.
that now they are very comfortable beating us. So to be honest, I'm really disappointed, and at this point I will say it's must roll, because we can't be losing to Afghanistan, the team that we during the Brendan Taylor days. Those guys, we used to beat them without struggling, and now we are it was disappointing.
All right, let me make a fair argument
Yeah.
here as well in defense of the side. Afghanistan were able to make the T20 World Cup semi-final. It shows you how much they have progressed.
Whilst you lost to Uganda, we lost to Uganda in the qualifiers.
But I'm making my point.
Exactly.
Sidi.
Okay,
So,
proceed.
Okay.
So you can't blame
Wait.
Afghanistan,
They
to be
made
honest.
a T20 World Cup semi-final. Under 19s, they've made a semi-final as well. And most of the guys that made that under 19 semi-final are the bowlers that we faced in this particular series. So if you look at Farouk, he was part of that side. If you look at Naveen ul Haq, he was part of that side. The only experience that is left in Afghanistan right now, Ramat Shah, Mohammed Nabi, Rashid Khan, maybe Mujib Rahman, Rahman. That's it. Most of the other guys have been coming through the under 19 setup. And maybe kudos to you for actually saying it in our previous shows that we need to look at our grassroots development. Right now, we've got youngsters that we've put in the national team setup, but that may not have gone through the processes. That's why we're now being embarrassed at international level, because we haven't taken our kids through the processes. A good example, Zimbabwe A needs to be reactivated. Without a Zimbabwe A side touring the likes of Pakistan, go and play a Pakistan A, go play a Sri Lanka A, West Indies A, South Africa A, even take your Zimbabwe A and plug it into a South African provincial cricket competition. Let them get hammered and belted and bruised. But guess what? At the end of the day, you will get there. And at the moment, I think we're short-circuiting the process.
Look, you highlighted that some of the players that faced the Zimbabwe Chevrons, they came through the under-19 side. Don't we have an under-19 side, Rimbo?
We do have an under-19 side.
So it means that, it's
But
either our
no,
boys...
No.
Yeah?
I'll jump in and argue. The under-19 side has got a serious challenge in that many of the youngsters are not seeking to stay in Zimbabwe, having played under-19 cricket for Zimbabwe. And maybe that is a story that Zimbabwe cricket itself has to answer. Many of them are not staying there, using the Zimbabwe under-19 cricket platform in order to get scholarships elsewhere. And once they've gone, they don't come back, or they don't even play the game of cricket. It's only the likes of Dion Myers, who went to university, came back, and guess what? He's still playing cricket.
Well, I personally think that there is a way of what you need to do with these youngsters, okay? Just try to, to keep them as a team. I don't know how you're going to do it. I don't work for Zimbabwe cricket, but I'm just talking as an analyst. Okay, there is a way. How are other countries doing it? And to be honest, Zimbabwe receives what, 12 to 15 million a year grants from ICC. I'm sure that some of that money, if they use it to keep these youngsters together, will not struggle in the future. So I believe it's a bit of an administrative challenge, as well as you can't blame someone for choosing school over cricket, but that person is anyone, a mentor who's talking to that youngster, hey, please come back, we need your talent in our ranks. Is there anyone who's in charge of that? Because if there isn't anyone, if someone doesn't feel appreciated, we have the likes of the Curran brothers playing for England, because there's no one who is looking after those youngsters, encouraging them, motivating them, and them feeling wanted in their national team.
We got one, Ben Karen. But
Or one of the
well,
Karen,
yeah,
of course.
Of course. But
It would have been
nonetheless,
nice
I
if
hear
we
your
had
point.
all three. Yeah.
Yeah, no, 100%. I hear you in that regard. And our hope is that, of course, they'll be looking to perfect their performance once they do get into a test series. Now, test cricket is much harder than one-day international, T20 international cricket. But our hope is that the coach is now beginning to work on some of those technical issues and aspects which we struggled with both in the Pakistan as well as in the limited over series against Afghanistan. First test kicks off on Boxing Day down in Bulawayo at Queen's Sports Club. We wish the boys the very best, and of course for those of you that will be down in Bulawayo during that time, please do go through. Let's support the boys and let's see what kind of a result they can bring on board. Now we're going to take a little bit of a short break. When we do come back, we're going to be going into Europe and taking a look at how teams are transforming the landscape of football. Now, if there's anybody that is happy on this set, it's the man called Sydney. I mean, I'm not necessarily a happy camper, but guess what? Liverpool is doing well. The city of Manchester is in absolute tears, whilst the rest of Europe has got something for us to talk about. Let's start off with the Premier League. Boxing Day matches that are coming up. For Liverpool, it's not really going to be too much of a hassle going into the Boxing Day. Manchester City has got Everton to face on home turf at the Etihad. Manchester United is making its trip across to Wolves. Wolves, who seem to have picked up, a good win after having replaced their manager. But at the moment, let's just take a look at Manchester. The city of Manchester is in absolute tears. Pep Guardiola has now gone through 11 matches. 11 matches. 1 win, 8 defeats, 2 draws. What is going on in the Man City dressing room?
Well, he always points out that he's missing his best player, Rodri. But I don't think that's the problem. There could be some challenges, They call them the backroom challenges, where the players and the managers, they are not seeing eye to eye on various issues. That's what I think is happening, because some of the mistakes really, from where I see, from where I'm standing from, I just feel like they are really sabotaging this guy. Especially the previous game that they played.
Aston Villa, yeah.
It was just a silly defensive error. Defender trying to play a square pass where there's a striker who's pressing. That is basic football. It's disappointing. It's really disappointing. But I really feel that it has got to do with what is happening behind the scenes.
Behind the scenes. Well, talking about what is happening behind the scenes, Manchester United has had issues behind the scenes for so many a year. And Ruben Amorim has tried to come in and fix it. But the humiliating loss to Bournemouth, this is now back-to-back home losses to Bournemouth in consecutive seasons that they've lost on home turf.
Well, we can just say maybe Ruben's still adjusting and adapting to the very, very tough league that is the English Premier League. So I just feel like I like his philosophy. I've watched a couple of games, especially against Manchester City. I like the fighting spirit that I saw in the Manchester United players, and also another player who's been impressive to me is Ahmad, that youngster
Amad Diallo.
from Ivory Coast. He's really impressive, and I hope that come the window transfer or come next season, that they will be able to keep him and give him a more stable contract, and as well as consistent time to play. That's what I think.
Life is a bit unfair, because if you look at Amad Diallo's contract and if you look at Marcus Rashford's contract, Marcus Rashford earning 350k a week. Amad Diallo is earning just about a third, if not less than a third, of what Marcus Rashford is doing. But the output is way way apart. But it just goes on to say, in terms of the shift, and this is where exactly I'm trying to push this, the shift in the big six seems to now have come. Now there's a difference between the big six and the performing teams in England. Now you're finding a Nottingham Forest performing at a high level.
Yeah.
A higher level than Tottenham Hotspur, a higher level than the likes of, at times,
Yeah.
the likes of Arsenal. Because Arsenal can bring a 5-1 win here and go next match and draw. I mean, they are very topsy-turvy
Yeah.
in that regard. But your general thoughts on how the landscape of English football is now beginning to change, where different names are now being found in that top 5?
Look, I think it has got to do with this new generation of young coaches, the likes of Ruben Amorim, the likes of Slot. I know you don't like him, and the likes of.
Who said I don't like the guy?
Okay. Anyways, so it's good to see that different philosophies are now being introduced by different teams. You mentioned Nottingham Forest. They made a huge investment about 3 seasons ago. Remember, they were fighting for relegation, but they got a youngster called Awoni, that big
Awoni,
number 9 striker. He's an ex-Liverpool player. They've also got players that I believe they've got one ex-Real Madrid player. They've got a couple of guys that they picked up from good sides, so they will be able to bring in different mentality and different playing styles, and just to add value to that Nottingham Forest. Remember, that's the only team that beat Liverpool, so it means that they are a force to reckon with. So yeah, we are waiting to see if obviously Manchester United, arguably they say that they are the biggest club, but we haven't seen it on the field of play. We're just waiting for that season where Manchester is going to come out all guns blazing. We haven't seen them in a while now, and hopefully that next year we'll be able to see Manchester United come back, and doing what they used to do back in Ferguson days or Jose Mourinho days. But I feel what is the major contribution is coming from the academies. Liverpool has invested heavily in the academies. So I think Arsenal, as well as, let me just point out a few teams. Southampton, they really did well with their academy teams. It saves you a lot of money, and it also helps, the players to know what the club stands for, the club's values, and all that stuff. Rather than getting a player for 300 million from wherever, coming into the club, if he performs, he doesn't care, because he hasn't been taught what the club stands for. So I think that's what has changed the English Premier League.
Oh yeah, definitely. Well, there's a lot obviously to talk about there and what needs to be done. But one of the other issues as well for Manchester United, if they actually intend to perform better, and Gaombo Visamakonzo Stadium, there's apparently a mice infestation that was reported by Mail Online UK, and apparently Manchester United are having to work with the local council and ANZI pest fumigators and whatever to try and get rid of a mice infestation in Old Trafford.
Krishana kambozvitaura chakaora chinisi. Mukamudzinga.
Well, Manchester United needs a whole lot. But anyway, let's just shift over. Let's quickly move over, fly over the seas and go into Spain. Real Madrid seems to have found the third gear.
Yeah.
Many people thought, with Kylian Mbappe there, they won't do anything. But guess what? It's now clicking. Just 1-4-2 against Sevilla. They're now just only a point or 2 points behind Atletico Madrid at the top.
Yeah.
Barcelona, which had started high flying, has also hit a Manchester City snag. They can't find a gear to win. Ancelotti, is he a mastermind or Zazungo go?
Well, I think when you've invested heavily, especially on the likes of Kylian Mbappe, when you have the likes of Jude Bellingham, I mean, those guys, yes, they will have some bad days. But when they are having, that, back-to-back performance, trust me, it's something that, that will actually help your club. And they will be playing, their best football. But I think now what is working is just championship mentality. We are how many times? 13 times. 13 times European Cup winners. So we can't be losing, back-to-back games. They've got a way of picking themselves up. They are arguably the biggest club. Of course, some say it's Manchester, but I believe Real Madrid. And all that history, when it comes to onto your mind, definitely you pick yourselves up.
Yeah, definitely, and they have picked themselves up. I think we're finally going to look at the Italian Serie A. That has generated quite a lot of interest, particularly for us as a Sports Extra, and would love to hear your thoughts and your comments around that. Atalanta. Atalanta. If you look at the stadium that they play in or where they actually come from, Atalanta would be almost the equivalent. If you're looking from Zimbabwean terms, Atalanta would be the equivalent of a team that would be coming out of the likes of Chegutu or Kadoma.
All right.
Very small town, very small place, Bergamo.
Yeah.
But they are leading the Italian Serie A. AC Milan has got nothing on them. Juventus is still in a rebuilding phase, so I excuse them. Inter Milan not yet able to get past them. In actual fact, when they did meet earlier on in the season, they drew. So Atalanta are doing well, but I put it down to this. The young Nigerian man, Ademola Lookman. He has been phenomenal, hasn't he?
He has been phenomenal. But I always look at, prior, them coming into the season. Remember, they beat Liverpool. Remember
Wired
that.
you in Europa League.
Yes, they wired us in Europa League. They beat us convincingly. We're convinced that yes, we're in no match to these guys. So those are some of the things that you look at, because success is not just a coincidence. It's careful. It's years and years of planning. And look, as of what I saw last season, even up to today, I'm not surprised, because they had a steady build-up. They had a clear plan of where they wanted to go and what they wanted to do. So kudos to their manager, who are doing really well. And this thing of someone is now, if it's in Zimbabwe, it's in Gokwe. Look, football is played 11 against 11, using that whatever type of soccer ball that you'll be using. Whoever wants it more is going to win it. And it looks like Atlanta wants it more.
Oh yes, they definitely want it more. They are leading. Inter Milan, yes, is slowly but surely tracking behind them. I think they're just about 2 points behind Atalanta. And so I think it's going to be a fantastic Serie A season. And don't forget, Atalanta then went into the final and gave Bayer Leverkusen their first defeat of the season. Bayer Leverkusen were undefeated in all competitions coming into that particular final. But they were hammered 3-0. All 3 goals coming from one man, which was Ademola Lookman. So I think Atalanta have got something to really bring to the table. So far in the Champions League, they're also looking quite good. So it's going to be an interesting toss-up. Well, it leaves us to just say thank you very much for tuning in to another episode of Sports Extra, the real sports platform which brings you news and issues locally, regionally, and internationally. Leaves me to thank my wonderful guest, Sydney Sawanu.
Thanks, Rimbo. Thanks for having me. It was a pleasure to be here on Sports Extra.
Oh, yes. And of course, we are wishing you a very Merry Christmas. And more importantly, a happy Boxing Day. I hope it will be good for me. Manchester United, if they win, I'll be all smiles. Whilst others here will be hoping that we don't win to even save our own lives. But until next time, cheerio.